Backyard Professor Chess videos. Let me share a game with you that I played my computer. It was rated at 1685. Not a grandmaster level, but an excellent training time. An excellent training piece for me practicing the Giuoco Piano, and to see, after studying a little bit, after sharing some ideas with you in these videos from various different books, I thought it might be fun to play the computer on a rating that is considered to be a strong player according to the Shredder chess app. Let me show you what happened to me when I played the computer. I was white. The computer was playing black. Now, I'm aware that this isn't the typical Giuoco Piano opening. He's playing the Sicilian. And I'm aware of that, but I thought, you know, I'm going to just keep trudging through using the Giuoco Piano and to see how this works out. You can see he's doing an immediately central thrust. In several games that I've read about, and in some of the instructions, to put the bishop back here is a complete waste of time because I'm going to want a castle. You don't ever want to pull a bishop back, so far as I'm aware. I played a few games with the computer where I put the bishop back here, and that ends up getting you in a little bit of trouble too. There's ways to get through this, but it's really quite difficult. That's not exactly recommended. That's not exactly strong. If you pull yourself back to here, you're developed all right, but you've come all that way to move it back, so I put it to here and put the king in check. This was how I did it. And he pulled his knight out to block the check. Now, rather than pursuing taking this knight as such, I went ahead and pushed the pawn one more. I thought, I'm going to try to close this center just to see what happens. I'm experimenting with myself. This is the fun of it. Well, of course, he's going to challenge the bishop. At this point, rather than moving back, because that would be the famous Noah's Ark, if I moved back here, and he came up to here, and I moved back here, I'm virtually trapped, right? So I could see that I can't do that. So that's not going to work. So when he challenged me, I went ahead and took the knight. It's that simple. It's time to get rid of the knight. And B takes, he's got doubled pawns here. He opens up his B file, which could be, quite frankly, useful. So he's not in too bad a shape. I'm going to challenge the center pawns. Here's what I'm thinking. I really want to challenge the center pawns. He's going to prepare to start getting ready to castle. I'm going to push really hard up into the center with a pawn thrust. And sure enough, he comes to rook b8 to open up the file, to use the file on me. And I'm thinking, okay, I know in the Giuoco Piano, it is important to castle because of the way the board usually gets set up, because of the nature of the... Now for me, so far as I can tell, it's been a dynamic opening. And I know there are some grandmasters who say, no, it's really not good. There's other grandmasters who are still using this thing all the time right now today. So based on what little I know, I went ahead and castled early, which is always, as a general policy, a good thing to do. My opponent came to 8-6. I decided I was going to try something here. If I'm going to close the center like this, if I'm going to keep the center closed, then I want to keep my knights. And that means I want to deprive him of his knights, and then that way it'll be a better board. This is a Jeremy Silman trick. This is the idea with this. This is the idea with this move of mine right here, to take his knight, and he responds with the G pawn, of course. So I've doubled up two of his pawns, two of his sets of pawns. I have given him two open files if he wishes to take And quite frankly, the open file is against my king here, so that may or may not become a factor. We'll see. I decided to take that chance just to see how this game progresses, because this is the fun of the experimentation, isn't it? So here's the situation as I found myself in after the 10th move. We're pretty into the development. We're both trying to develop. The deliberate imbalance that I have sought to create on purpose is to deprive my opponent of his knights and to keep my knights and force him to be saddled with his bishops, because I intended to keep this game a closed game. I wanted stuff to be in the center. I wanted pawns to be stopping each other's progression so that it was a closed area. And we'll see how good I did. In some respects I did okay, in other respects I didn't do so hot. It's a fun practice game. I brought my knight out to here, of course, since I can't come out to the c3 square. And this allows... I saw he was going to take the pawn. I suspected he would, and that's okay, because in some respects I think I can wrest that open file from him. Now, what have I told you about open files? Of course. Get them and use them. Well, that's what my opponent's doing with me. And it makes it look pretty bad. But I'm thinking, you know, I can take that file from him, and I can use that file for myself. This, of course, gives him my queenside pawns. Not necessarily a good strategy to do. But be that as it may, I'm into this game this far. It sure beats challenging the open file with a rook rather than putting my queen over there. Yeah, trust me on that. I don't care what you say, I'm right on that. Okay, then, now watch. This gets really fun for me. I recognized he hasn't developed very fast, although he's done really remarkably good. I can pin this bishop. I can keep this bishop from developing. Now you say, well, what's the point? It's his bad bishop anyway. Just watch. In a way, you're right. It's his bad bishop, so it's really not, you know, it's not like I'm crowing about a superb victory here. No, not yet. The pawn is going to challenge the center pawn, of course, and this is one reason why I saw the idea of getting rid of his knights so that I could have knights. Is that light goofy up? Yeah, it doesn't matter what I do. That stupid light's in the way. Because I knew I can open up another file and another file, and I can close off this center. And because I'm closing off this center, I can cramp my opponent in with the bishop. And notice the queen. Neither one of those have a lot of active position or play, right? He brought his rook down, and he's sitting down here not doing a whole lot. I suppose he's keeping eye on my queen side while I keep eye on his queen side. It's kind of an interesting change up there, isn't it? So I retook the d4, which keeps this quiet here, and then he immediately is trying to open it. Of course, he has to, because his queen side is so undeveloped. At least that's my thinking on this. I brought my queen up to here. Now what I'm trying to do, one, I'm hitting his rook. Two, I'm giving my rook support here. Three, I'm keeping an eye on the center. He's got a lone pawn over there, even though it is supported here and with the bishop. Now his queen can at least start trying to come out a little bit further, if he so pursues that particular situation. But for now, he's got to take care of business, and he puts his rook right there on a5. Now, I bring my other rook to rook c1. This was my deliberate, purposeful plan, in my own mind anyway. I was thinking, I took the open file from my opponent, I have created another open file, then I need to put my other rook on that other open file, right? Because you can see this is a direct line to his to his area. Now, granted, he does have the option of still castling, in which case you might say, well, moron, you're on the other side of the board. That doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Yes, chess can be won by checkmating the king, but chess can also be won in other factors with other ways, and this might be very well be a very good way. Now you can see the pressure I've got on him. My queen is here, keeping an eye on the center. My rook is here, keeping an eye on his file, and now my rook is here again, keeping an eye on the center. I have this pawn hit twice. I also have some knights that can scoot over here really, really quick in the fray. I want to develop my knights and make my knights superior to his bishops. So far as I can see, they're doing okay. They're not vastly superior yet, but they're doing okay. So this was my idea. Now watch this. He continues pressing that pawn. Very nice, very interesting, I thought. Great pawn chain. Unfortunately, he's got the wrong minor pieces. In my opinion, and I understand I will be criticized for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is what I was thinking. I thought that helped me, personally. And we'll see if it did or not. But I thought when he made that move, I said, all right, I was prepared for him to... Of course, then if he did take it, I was going to bring my knight right up into the magnificent center. So maybe that's why I pushed it down. To put pressure on my queen, I don't know. In the meantime, I went ahead and took this with my knight. Now you see, the interesting thing is, I wanted to keep both my knights, but that pawn chain is so long and powerful, and it opens up this for me. It gets rid of his pawns. So I went ahead and took it with my knight. He, of course, responds by taking that. And now I retake with my queen. Now look at the situation. Yes, I have sacrificed one of my minor pieces in a closed position that perhaps would have done me better in the closed position. On the other hand, here was my thinking. The sacrifice opens up the file here and the file here, and his rook is over here. He's still somewhat closed off. He can't get out here in less than 2 or 3 moves and give me 2 or 3 moves, and I'm going to have more power on his side. So it was worth the sacrifice. This was my thinking at the time. And his bishop comes scooting down to here to bishop h4. And I'm thinking that really doesn't do him a lot of good. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bishop with my rook. And now I've pinned his queen to the king. You see how that works? Now he's lost his queen for good. There's nothing he can do to stop me from getting his queen. The queen has to take the rook. The queen, of course, takes the rook. Check. Now he's in deep trouble. Bishop comes back down here to d8 to block the check. And then I came to here. And that's where my opponent resigned. And the reason is obvious. Notice this other open file. I'm going to alternate. And I'm going to bring my other rook up here. And then in a worst case scenario, I'm going to get his bishop, because his bishop is pinned right now because of my queen. Bringing my rook up here, I will get his bishop. He will be forced to move out, and I will come over here and get his rook. And it's going to be a complete slaughter by the time the end really does come, if he proceeds, but he didn't. So this is my idea with the Giuoco Piano, is practice the opening as well as you can. I make the first 3 or 4 moves steadily, consistently in the Giuoco Piano to get the feel, the flavor. You can see there's plenty of dynamism in it. There's plenty to use tactics-wise, and I think honestly it's a great opening to practice with. Spring it on some people when you're playing in a tournament or in your chess club. I know it's not really well known, and yet on the other hand, we have grandmasters still playing it today. So maybe it's better well known than I've assumed. Who knows? But anyway, there's your chess game for the day. There's your chess lesson for the day. Happy chessercising. By the way, I thought I had invented that word in my videos a year ago, you know, when I started doing the chessercise videos. I didn't. I found that the Grandmaster Lev Albert, it was actually in one of the books I own. I bought it, The Secrets of the Russian Grandmasters. I think it's in the second volume, where he talks about chessercising. I thought, that kind of sucks. That's a bummer. But anyway, it doesn't matter who thought of it. What matters is that we continue chessercising and practicing and studying and have a great life. And I will see you in the next video.